Okay. Share the screen. All right, good morning. That was last week. Here we go. Okay. All right, let's just jump right into it. Actually, I want to leave this so you can unmute yourselves. Okay, you should be able to unmute yourself. Anybody have anything you want to say this morning? Anybody have any questions or any comment they wanted to make before we get started? Good. Okay. I think we left off. Oh, wait. Didn't I mark it? Yep, right there. So for anybody that's new, I was invited on here. We're going through Wallace Wattles and The Science of Getting Rich, the book. It says right up here. And we're just going through page by page. And we're on like week 25, 28, something like that. And they're all recorded. I'll catch up this week. I almost did that yesterday and I got distracted, but get the last 3 or 4 shows up on the YouTube channel. We'll be caught up there. But you can go to Mechanic to Millionaire on YouTube and Empowered to Have It All. You can go to show number 1. Or I think they're all numbered numerically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just start at number 1. That'll get you caught up to where we are. I'd recommend you can go ahead and keep getting on each week and just kind of work the candle from both ends. And it's going along with, we're taking this and we're applying it. We want to extract from the book the principles to success and how to generate more income. Remember what he said in the beginning, you guys. Your number 1 priority is to get wealthy. He says get rich. I'm sensitive a little bit to people's paradigms, and rich sometimes has a negative connotation to somebody. I don't have a problem with being rich or using that word, but I guess I get a little bit sensitive to how people might take that. So I'll use both, rich or wealthy. That's our number 1 priority. And if you're doing it along the lines that would be in the highest good for everybody, like everybody wins in your process of creating transactions that bless other people's lives, and they're getting more use value than you're charging them in the transaction monetarily, then that's along the lines of God's laws. That's how abundance is created and how God wants us to do it. We can choose for ourselves. We could be ignorant to it, remain ignorant. We could choose to rebel against it. We could choose to ignore it. We could choose to put our lives in harmony with it. Everybody has the free agency. And pride, ego, if anybody wants to have that, that's more power to them. Everybody does what they think is best for them. So, but what I've learned is that the more I live the principles that God has instituted, the more I put my life in alignment with them, the happier I am, the more fulfilled I am, the more abundant my life is, and the less problems I have. It's that simple. It really is. It doesn't need to, it's like Jimmy Smith says about isogenics, don't overcomplicate my business. 100 BV is our best product. And so we're taking these and extracting them and looking at, and it's really along the lines of thinking. Have you noticed that? Pretty much everything we've been learning here is philosophy. And philosophy is synonymous with religion. And it's our governing, guiding, mechanism. It's what we have in our minds, the way we piece things together, the correlations that we've made, and we make decisions based on what's inside our minds and what's stored away in there. And so philosophy, our guiding, governing mechanism. And, a couple of things about that. Taking 100% responsibility for all of the things that are coming into our lives. That's one of the things that the principles taught me. Taking 100% responsibility. Not that I'm making things happen purposefully. Nobody wants to go out and make things bad happen to themselves. But when we start to understand cause and effect, the more we realize 99.9% of the things that we are in control of have to do with our personal peace and our environment immediately around us and how we're experiencing that. Even with what's going on in the world right now, a lot of uncertainty out there. You could be totally uncertainty right now. You could be totally certain right now and have peace and know exactly where you're going in spite of what's going on out there in the world. And I truly believe that. I truly, truly believe that that's the power of our intention and in our mind. And then when there are things that come into our environment that we can't explain how it got there and it's not something that we wanted, then it's at that point, what's your attitude like? What's the attitude like? Because when the attitude is awesome, you always come out on top eventually. You always come out on top eventually. And I would even say on a more profound level, because I like to think out further and further and further, so that not too far though, because the reason I'm thinking out further is so that my right now can be enjoyed. And so I'm anticipating and looking at things so I can anticipate in the right way, educatedly, inspirationally, so that I could avoid any pitfalls that might be up ahead. So I'm enjoying the now, but I am also in the future. I would hate to be in the future all the time and not enjoying the now. But that's so I can enjoy it. So whether it's on a profound level, whether it's in life or death, your attitude and you're in harmony with principles, you always come out on top. Right? Light always wins. Light always wins over darkness. So, and that's going to fall back onto a paradigm of what you believe about this life and where we came from and where we're going. But even the principles help you to understand that. Understanding principles, whether you're getting those principles out of scripture or from a philosopher. I like what Wadsworth says about where we came from and why we're here. Traveling clouds of glory do we come. So the more we can internalize and incorporate into our lives, what I mean by incorporating, taking these things and putting them in practical application. So then the other part of why we're going through the science of getting rich is to apply that to, let's see, I think I put it right here. Put it towards our template. And there's a recording about the template on that YouTube channel, Mechanic to Millionaire. I think it's something like the complete template. It's about an hour and 50 minutes, and it goes through steps 1 through 5 and everything in between. And really framing up your goal in the right way. Bob Proctor says 95% of people out there don't set goals the right way. And I was talking to somebody the other day, an associate, who's really getting it, and the results are showing it. It's kind of like Harry. He's living in the house that he had no idea how he was going to get into following these principles. And he's in that house right now. This associate, I lost my train of thought. It's talking about putting the pieces together here, everything in between. What was it? Well, putting these pieces together. So we go from steps 1 through 5 and everything in between, and setting goals up the right way. And this particular person said, the way I have the template now, I never looked at myself as a leader. That was not that particular person's identity. The leader was something outside of them. And that's how most people set up their goals. And what we're learning through the science of getting rich and other things that we add in there is that that's not how you look at yourself. You got to have the identity first. You got to take ownership of the identity of what your goal is. So taking ownership, that's a good thing to write down. That's a good maxim to say, to remind yourself and to trigger what it is you're after. What's the goal here? Oh, to take on that identity now inside myself. Make that fantasy real. I don't have to share that with anybody. Nobody has to tell me that that's what my identity is. I internally, as on the inside, so on the outside, need to get to where I'm taking that identity as an already accomplished fact with the feelings that go along with it and the gratitude that goes along with it. So we're taking these principles, extracting them, and then finding out, where am I not applying that? And so along with the template, it really brings both worlds together, your business and your mindset. And mindset comes first. Tony Robbins calls it first cause or state. And so let me pull this up here. We're bringing both of them together. So what I used to have a problem with, and I would always get so frustrated with my business goals because I would launch out like a cannon every time, whatever I wanted to pursue, because I have a really good, I could daydream pretty good. I remember me and a girl named June in elementary school, and we were always getting in trouble for not paying attention. And June was better at it than I was. She was always daydreaming, and the teacher would pull us out of that daydream. And so I would launch out because I got a pretty good fantasy in my mind of what I want to do with what I'm going to pursue. All right. And so, but I didn't know. So this is personal development, if you could rate that on a scale of 1 to 10. And so I have some room for improvement with my philosophy. I'm missing some information. I didn't get it all. They didn't teach it all to me in school. My parents didn't teach it to me. My siblings didn't teach it to me. Friends didn't teach it to me. The TV shows that I grew up, Hanna-Barbera, what was the Bugs Bunny and all of those Looney Tunes, they didn't teach me. Brady Bunch didn't teach me. So I was missing some information. And that information was essential for me to get the results that I wanted in life, to get my business up to a 10, which would be the ultimate, I'm living my life and I accomplished that goal to the highest level, right? So I'm missing some information. And when you can say, okay, I'll take 100% responsibility for not moving my life forward. It's not my boss's fault. It's not that I was born into a certain family. It wasn't that I didn't have a certain opportunity like somebody who's born in with a silver spoon in their mouth. We come up with all kinds of erroneous rationalizations and justifications for our lack of success. In most cases, it's the boss, it's the company, it's the head guy, right? Head person. So when we can take 100% responsibility for the results that are in our lives, and the more we understand these principles, the more able and willing we are to do that. You're really not able to do that until you are open to learning the principles and then making agreements with them. I could tell you certain things, but then when something comes up in your subconscious or a certain scenario, you'll forget what I said and start to go into justification and rationalization, complaining and victimization. and it doesn't stick. You really got to get the principles internalized, and that's a personal thing. So as I was trying, and I, again, I know personally how hard I work and how much excellence and pride I put into my work, and how much time and tenacity and intestinal fortitude, and still remaining stuck. So I'd get there really quick, but then I'd remain stuck. And so I tried finding the personal development, like I read the books and taught about scheduling, setting goals, but I was setting goals in the wrong way. I didn't get the right books. I was setting goals as though there was something outside of me and that I had to get to them. And it just never worked. So I'd go from one thing to the next, so much that my, parents looked at me as somebody who started things and then quit. It was, I mean, everybody, I would say most people, when they don't have the principles, they start things and quit, or they settle for mediocrity and don't try anymore. Well, I never gave up. So I'd start something else and then quit eventually because of just trying so hard. And then the excuse would be, well, I guess this isn't what God wants me to do. I guess this isn't what I was born to do. I guess I just won't have the talent to do that. Whatever I could come up with, but I never gave up. And so I'd try something else and something else and something else. It was really good the way God pruned me in that, he wasn't holding me back. Had I learned the principles sooner, I would have had the success sooner. But just the way God set up this universe and cause and effect, and the way I was being pruned automatically by the cause and effect that's woven into the fabric of the universe. And so God didn't have to micromanage my life, and I didn't have to gain favor in his eyes. I just had to align myself with the principles and I would get the result. But it's God's universe. And so it was perfect. I look back and I just think, so perfect. All that frustration, because when the answer came, it was very clear to me how I started having the success, what changed, and why it changed, and just getting to that place of understanding and gaining the knowledge of it all, the very empowering way, instead of just learning happenstance, like just kind of stumbling on to success. That wasn't my case. That's why I'm so passionate still today about teaching these things and sharing what I stumbled upon, I guess, and gave attention to, and energy, and practical application. So, and I get it. People may not stick to it, may not give it as much attention as it needs, even going through a program like this. And you got to ask yourself why. Why am I not sticking to it? Why am I not doing my template on the level that, because the only way you're going to move your life forward is gaining the identity and the way that the principles teach. And no other way. There is no other way. It is the only way. So, again, asking yourself these questions. Why am I not sticking to it? And then making a resolve and doing it again. So as I moved forward, and so these problems that I'd come up against where I needed the information, and I wasn't getting the information up to that point in my life, 36 years. And I read a lot of books out there that didn't go into this more profound principles that we're learning: law of attraction, law of non-resistance, law of gratitude, law of abundance, law of compensation. I wasn't getting those. Maybe I had come across them, but I didn't give them the attention. Maybe I didn't understand it. It's kind of like math. I didn't understand math, and I didn't try to understand math. So these problems that needed that knowledge base of those principles, I didn't have it up here. So they're greater. The problems were greater than I was in overcoming them. I didn't create the problems. There were just, it's like baking a cake. You're putting in the ingredients. Every ingredient's essential. And as you get closer to the cake being done and all the ingredients in the bowl, even the temperature of the oven and how long it's in the oven and all of that stuff is part of the ingredients, right? So I was just missing some of that essential knowledge to put the ingredients into my actions. But once I got them, moved my knowledge base forward. See, this is where I could go back to, I'm willing to take 100% responsibility, because whose responsibility is it for me to internalize and gain greater and greater knowledge, truth, not just knowledge, but truth. And things that are around what it is I want to be and accomplish and experience. I could have went and studied math. I wouldn't be a millionaire today, more than likely, if I had put all of my time and energy in understanding the principle of math. That doesn't equate. That didn't, that's not going to help me with my, my wealth. And maybe, but probably not, right? There's a lot of people who have mastered math who still live in poverty. So, do you guys get that? That's important. That's why the template is framed up the way it is. And that's why we're doing the book that we're doing and putting them together so that it's very specifically applied, right? And so whose responsibility is that? Your teachers, your parents, your siblings, your next door neighbor, the economist that's on the news, God? Whose responsibility is it for your personal growth? Nobody's, gonna twist your arm, and they couldn't anyways. Even if somebody twisted your arm, you could still resist and not agree with what they're trying to get you to internalize. Ever been a parent, right? So it's, I'm willing to take 100% responsibility for my life and the results that I'm getting in it. And then we go forward and we move forward and we resolve this whole issue right here. So once I got the knowledge that these particular circumstances presented, I was able to now mentally overcome those challenges by having the right ingredients in my philosophy. It's all mental. We're spiritual beings and we're working on a spiritual level here first. It was the word that created the earth, right? The power of the word. And could you imagine God like getting a shovel out and getting a rocket ship and bringing a dump truck of dirt from one planet to here? It didn't work that way. It manifested out of the quantum world, the thinking stuff, based on the power of the word and having command over the elements. So when you understand those principles, I was watching a thing on Prince, the life of Prince, where they show behind the music. And, just like with Elton John and watching that movie, I had no idea about Elton John, and that's what his life consisted of. And he won me as a fan in how he's overcome the challenges in his life. And, with Prince, there was some things about his background that really, he won me over as a fan, as an admirer in, the way he overcame his obstacles. So I don't even know what I was going to say about Prince. I always elaborate and then I forget the point I was going to make. So anyways, just that, I don't know what I was going to say about that. Anyway, my mind isn't clicking that good this morning either. I kind of woke up. I used the sleep spray last night. I didn't get until 1 o'clock. And I thought I better take some sleep spray. And I still have sleep sprayed on the brain. So anyway, you guys, I hope this makes sense right here. You've got to put the pieces together in your head and get an understanding so that you can apply them. All right. So for what that was worth there, let's go back to the book. Where are we? Right here. All right. So the identity, you've got to get the identity. And so you want to watch that template video and then print out this template and follow along while you're watching the video. It's just as essential as getting on this Zoom to do that. And we're applying both of them together. The practical application of what we're learning here. All right, so he says, the creative power within us makes us into the image of that which we give our attention. Whatever's getting your attention, that's, that wins. We are thinking substance, and thinking substance always takes the form of that which it thinks about. So are you letting the current wind of politics get you to think a certain way, feel a certain way? Did what's in the news get you to set your cells in that direction? Because the same wind blows on us all. It's the setting of the cells. And I remember Bob Proctor saying too, if you keep thinking about debt and it just has you, like you just can't let it go, the grasp on you is too much, then come up with a good debt reduction program and feel empowered and take control of that scenario by getting on a good debt reduction program. Great advice, right? If not being in the kind of shape that you want to be fitness wise and cardiovascular, then get on a good fitness cardiovascular program, instead of thinking about it and it having a grip around you and you're just not doing anything to overcome it, and to turn it around. So good advice. If something has got you, then get on a good whatever program. And so that will help you to frame up the image. So at least you would be, I'm getting out of debt, I'm getting out of debt, I'm getting out of debt, which would move you more towards your goal than I'm in debt. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do, right? There's a little bit of an incremental change that I'm getting out of debt. The ultimate would be, I'm out of debt, but sometimes that's too much to swallow. So if you got on a good debt reduction program, set a budget up for yourself and started living by it and make it clear, you don't have the blueprint written out, then as you're saying those things, it becomes more manageable on a mental level. You gotta be as wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, and trying to overcome it by battling it every time you bring it up, and it doesn't change. Your mind isn't getting more and more disciplined with that battle that you're sustaining. Then wise up, come up with a better tactic to take that on. I choose to be out of debt. I'm on an awesome debt reduction program and my debt is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I choose, right? Instead of I am out of debt, or I live an abundant life and have more money than I know what to do with, So be wise with that. So the grateful mind, because you want to be, that's it right there. That's the key, the grateful mind. The grateful mind is constantly fixed upon the best. Therefore, it tends to become the best. It takes the form or character of the best and will receive the best. That's why when you can give, you know how it says you have to give before you receive? These are things that you can give. The template, you can give to your heart's content with the template and not have anything. Be completely broke. Who was it that wrote the Traction Factor? He was in the movie The Secret. I got the book on my shelf there. And he lived on a park bench, But from nothing and no way, a way was made. And he actually picked up a book. A book came across his path somehow while he was living on a park bench, basically, and turned everything around. So we can do that here. You don't have first and then you feel like it, You've got to feel like it first. Feeling is the secret. So gratitude is the means by which we do that. But then you've got to frame up something to be grateful for. Well, you could be grateful about anything, but the more specific about what you're grateful for, you start to take on the image of that thing in the physical world. I'm watching that happen to somebody right now. It's happened to more than one person, but I'm watching it happen to somebody right now. It's just so awesome. It's a euphoric feeling to watch somebody just nail this and take on the form of, this template. And it's just so awesome. People that are putting in the work. It has to return results.
Dave?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could I ask a question?
Yeah.
This is Vicky. Maybe my name's up, but anyway, good morning. So on the template, I have so much written down, reframed, and as you said, like, journals and then putting out 3x cards. How do I say this? So the template, when you fill it out, are you filling out different pages of templates? So you're like, let's say I'm starting at, number 1, $500 in cycles a month. and then filling in, following the 2, 3, 4, and 5. Am I actually filling out a template for all of my stages? Do I start the
Yeah,
template?
you would use like well, I use notepads in the beginning, the legal pads.
Right, I heard
And
that, yeah.
I would write it out until it became a very clear picture. So that could have been 3 or 4 pages long, 2 pages long, what page,
Uh-huh.
I don't know, so more than a page long.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it framed up a very clear picture that was getting filled in, because each time I'd read it, something more would come to my mind and I'd add it. And you got to catch yourself when you're adding something that's not written. Write it in, because it's starting to become the journal of your life. It's starting to become who you are on a more clear, coherent, practical, picture of it. And so as I did that, I would read it. And so there would be a couple pages for this box, a couple pages for this box, a page and a half for this box,
Oh, oh,
maybe 3
oh.
pages for this box,
Okay.
maybe, 2 or 3 pages for this box. And then I would carry that around with me and I'd read it over and over. And it took some time to read it. You got to be really dedicated to reading that. And it was internalizing the image of who I was, right? And I was
Mhm.
creating the feeling of gratitude. It wasn't, I'm going to. I wrote it up as in the now. This is what's happening. So I didn't say someday, or I will be, or I can't wait till. It was
Mhm.
always like in the present. And so as I was doing that, I became very familiar with it. It was
Right.
like, I could start a sentence, flip the page over and start a sentence and know exactly what was coming, because I was so
Mhm.
familiar reading it over and over. You don't want to make it so long continually. You want to just get it to where it becomes a very clear, you
Okay.
know, who, what, why, wow, how, and when, and all of that in there, and get it clear. So what I did was I still would use that. I think I did it in the morning the most, but then I would write down the trigger points of the main points of each one of those bodies of the different areas onto a 3x5 card.
For
And that way I
time.
would have that trigger in my pocket. I'd put it on a little ring and punch a
Mhm.
hole through the corner. And then I learned, oh, that doesn't last very long because the card rips. So I'd put tape and then punch it through the tape to make it sturdier, and then
Mhm.
carry them in my pocket. And I would read it, the trigger points, but it would bring back a fresh memory of what I had on the legal pad. And I would visit the legal pad, and I think I did the legal pad, if I remember back when I did it that way, um, every morning. So as it got longer and longer, it took me more and more time to do it. And then I would use the triggers throughout the day so that I was constantly in that state. And when I fell out of that state, it was either something that was essential to distract me, like I had to talk to the boss or a customer or whatever. But then as soon
Mhm.
as I got done with them, and I could get back to that state, get back to that state. And
Uh,
it was the feeling that I was looking for. So hopefully, does that answer your question, or is there
uh,
something more?
well, yes, a big part of it, because what I heard at the beginning, what you said was um, that you took what was on your legal pad or in your notebooks, which I have a lot of information, or I filled that out and written it out according
You don't want to
to
get bogged down in detail, you guys. That's something that I was
exactly,
looking to say earlier. You don't want to get
exactly.
bogged down in too much detail. What are the main points? But now you've identified the nooks and crannies around those main
Yes.
points.
Thank you. That's exactly. I got bogged down. So then when you said though too, really like when I'm clear on what it is I'm wanting to focus on those pages, so then I would say, okay, this is like number one. This covers the areas of the template. So like, law of compensation. And do you know what I got from you is that I can, my notes, get clear on them and number them 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm clear on what it is I'm speaking to on the template. I'm not trying to fill out the template with just that little information, but expand it, but don't get bogged down. Because I
Yeah,
can always,
you want to
yeah,
write them out and get them clear, so that
yes,
you know what that looks like. You know that
okay,
the customers are happy, and when they come home at night, You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're engaged with their family because the products have given them that energy even after work, and they're waking up before the alarm clock. You can write all that stuff, but you do not have to repeat all of that stuff when
Mm-hmm.
you're carrying that state around with you throughout the day.
Okay.
You want to hit the bullseye, you guys, the income producing bullseye. Maybe write that down, because I've never said that before. Income producing bullseye with each one of these. I have awesome customers who are making isogenics their lifestyle, and they're so passionate about it, and they're walking, talking, breathing billboards. They're getting their products paid for and helping others to be introduced. Okay. But
Yes.
I you know, that's one couple sentences, but I
Yeah, and
built
thank you
out a
for
page and a half around customers, right?
sharing it, because those words, I've written it down like that because it really condensed it for me. And it's so thank you. Yeah. I took that from
So
the
then you start to take on the image. So if we go back to what the book says here, the grateful mind is constantly fixed upon the best. Therefore, it tends to become the best. It takes the form or character of the best and will receive the best. So if you carry that thought around, those couple sentences that I just said, and really feel it, you're going to have people who are loving the products, people who show up, who are ready to get started. They don't fight with you about the auto ship. They don't fight with you about the cost of the products. They don't tell you they don't like how it tastes. You know, they don't complain to you that they're not getting the results. Just from those couple sentences that I'm feeling that, and I'm revisiting it, and it's starting to become a part of my psyche, and I'm grateful for it, right? And you could go back and get familiar with some of the other things every once in a while, 2-3 times a week. But the trigger and having that grateful mind about those things, you got to get that state to where it's a constant state. Because remember, I read that, it's back, I think it's back on the other page. It's draw an eye, let's see. If your gratitude is strong and constant, if your gratitude is strong, so you're really getting familiar with what is it I really want. That's what the prayer is, you guys, deciding what it is you really want. If you have the same prayer over and over for 5 years, then you're realizing, you're coming to a realization of what you really want. You're just missing some of those points that you need to finish that desire off that's in your heart. You're waiting for God to do the work. God's not going to do the work. He's waiting for you to do the right work. He's already set it up. All of your prayers are already answered. Okay. And so you've got to get those other principles integrated with that desire that's in your heart, that's constant and strong. You're just expecting God to do the work for you, but no, that's not how it works. Okay. So, you know, how grateful I am for the teachers that showed up in my life around these principles, the books, and the few living people that are still alive. All right, so moving on. Anything else on that?
I have
No,
something.
thank you.
I have something real quick. So I think the separation, and maybe you can help get clear, but as we're writing these bullet points down, what I'm finding is details and steps start showing up, if that makes sense. People show up, steps show up, you know, and then you're not readjusting when the steps show up, because I'm not really clear on that, because I know that you need one continuous message, but I also am finding as I'm going for these goals, additional steps show up.
Yeah, as you're getting clear, you see the steps of what are happening for those customers, right? You start to get fixed into your mind an image of people talking to other people.
Okay.
Right? Introducing other people to it. Like their co-workers are getting on it. People at church, remember I said that in the template. Exhaust everybody that's around them. Co-workers, strangers at Starbucks, strangers at the grocery store, you know, people that are running into them, their family, their cousins, their relatives, their neighbors. You start to see these steps that are taking place within interactions of people. And, you know, so that's why we're writing that out to where it's almost like we're writing out a script for a movie and all the actors have a part to play. And so those start becoming a part, again, something that you can become grateful for and fixed in your mind in an image. That image of people talking to people successfully. and they're successful, and they're sharing the products and getting them started. And these are just my customers. Are you kidding me? They're getting their products paid for. That's the best. And so what does my physical world, if I'm grateful for that which I'm making an image of, if I hold that feeling of gratitude, what does it have to take? The form of that image. So why not make it? That's why the request or the challenge to what's the highest, grandest version that you can think of for yourself. But that alone isn't going to do it. You guys see the work that has to go into this? All right, so this is a doing. This is a getting into action. These principles are all about action. They have to be, because you don't get reaction until you put forth an action. And thinking is an action, but it's a more powerful action when you have the feeling behind it. That's why Neville Goddard chose the title for that book, Feeling is the Secret. It's an action. You're creating an action, and it's the most powerful, most potent form of action that you could implement into your life and facilitate. And then it could be by design, because you can put that kind of feeling around anything that you want to, right? In this case, we're talking about our Isogenics business and getting wealthy so that you have time freedom and financial freedom, and you're making an impact in other people's lives at the same time. So also, faith is born of gratitude. It has to be. You already have it. It's the highest, most perfect form of faith that there is. You went from a hope to an absolute faith. You're grateful for it. It already happened. The grateful mind continually expects good things, and expectations become faith. Of course they do. You're expecting it. You're not hoping. You're not wishing. You're not requesting. You are putting forth perfect faith. That's why it couldn't be stopped in my life. That's why I replaced my income in 4.5 months, because it couldn't be stopped. Faith is the moving cause of all things. The reaction of gratitude upon one's own mind produces faith. So I would say you can, I've said this many times in trainings, you could improve your faith incrementally. If you really think about that, that should be your number one goal in life. That is the greatest power you could be able to wield ever, is to incrementally increase your faith. What is faith? It's perfect faith. It's not a hope. It's not a request. It's not a wanting. It's a done. It's done. And you read the Bible on what it says about faith. According to your faith, so be it, right? So you could increase your faith incrementally. How? By how long you hold the feeling of gratitude about a very specific image. If you're all over the place, one day it's this image, the next day it's that image, you're not going to have the law of gestation. You're not putting enough consistently. That would be like planting a seed, and it's an apple seed, and then digging it up 2 days later and putting in an orange seed. And then a day later, digging that up and putting in strawberry seeds. And then a couple days later, digging it up and putting in, tomato seeds. None of them are ever going to grow and come to fruition. People change their minds way too much. That's where concentration and focus comes in. But it's not just concentration and focus that gets the deal done. It's these other principles that we're understanding why we do them. So the law of gestation, you've got to nurture that seed. You got to protect it. How do we protect it? How do we nurture it? We work on the disciplines of the mind, the feelings, the focus. What am I concentrating on? Then the law of non-resistance has to come into play. When things come in that try to distract you, all distractions are equal. Why? Because it causes you to dig up the seed or leave it to itself, and it can't nurture itself. It's incapable of nurturing itself. When the building, and I meant to say this last time, when the building, remember when I said the workers at the construction site, when they're taking a break, the building is not being built. There's no progress that's being made in the building. The construction workers have to be swinging hammers. They have to be moving saws. They got to be, doing something, some kind of action to get the building to going up. But once the building's up, maintaining the building is so much easier. One person can maintain that building for the rest of that building's life. The maintenance guy can maintain the building. So it takes more work in the building of than it does the maintaining. Well, that's because you're wired that way now, 30, 60, 90 days. But in the beginning, you have to be constantly building. If you're not in the process of building and doing some kind of action, you got distracted. That's why all distractions are equal. They keep you from building the building, nurturing the seed. How do you nurture the seed? You got to have a state of gratitude, but not just a state of gratitude alone. It's got to be a specific image of gratitude. All right, does that make sense? So you can incrementally increase your ability to wield faith in anything of your choosing. But Thomas Edison said, I fix my mind on one thing until it's accomplished. Now that it's accomplished, it's created. Now the maintaining of it is almost has wills of its own. And it will in your isogenics business if you do that business partner category right, box 3. So the person that I'm really excited about, she knows who she is. Keep going, keep doing it, keep putting in that, box number 3. Build the highest, grandest version of business partners that you can. Don't get bogged down in the details. Write the details out, get them clear, get it refined, work on it until it's right. And when you read it, it feels good all the way through. And then go and make the triggers around the income producing bullseye. And then let that trigger be with you all day long, every day. Go back and revisit the notepad 3-4 times a week. Okay? So he who has no feeling of gratitude cannot long retain a living faith. You're not swinging the hammers, the saws aren't going, the electricity's not being connected. Right? And I'm getting some background noise. Somebody's walking around or something. Make sure you're muted out. And without a living faith, so a living faith is that gratitude. But remember, gratitude alone isn't what will do it. The template is essential. He who has no feeling of gratitude cannot long retain a living faith. And without a living faith, you cannot get rich by the creative method, as we shall see in the following chapters. Things are coming out of the woodwork for this particular associate. People are coming out of the woodwork, and they're coming out as that person who's already at that level. They don't have to pull teeth. They don't have to do the training and stuff with them. They're ready to go. They're still involved with them, but it's like rowing downstream. You could kick your feet up, you could pull the oars in, and the flow of the river is moving you downstream, where most people feel like they're rowing upstream. It's because they keep negating the faith through being distracted, through feelings of dissatisfaction. It is necessary then to cultivate the habit of being grateful. It is necessary. See, that's a personal responsibility. I'm willing to take 100% responsibility. And if it's too much work for you, then just admit that it's too much work and you're not willing to do it. Well, what would be the problem there? Your why is not big enough. Your why isn't big enough to motivate you. But there's always a why out there somewhere that's big enough to motivate you. Every living human being has a why that's big enough to cause them to do this. You just haven't tapped into it yet. So if the work feels too hard for you, then you haven't revisited your dream. It is necessary then to cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you and to give thanks continuously. Now remember, with the broken dish, you don't have to all of a sudden come up with being grateful for that broken dish and go into a long, exhortation of coming up with things of why you're grateful for the broken dish. L&R the broken dish and stay on the specific thing to be grateful for. Don't get distracted by the broken dish or the ticket that you just got from the police officer or the child that just called you and complained to you, that you're not the parent that you're supposed to be for me, Pretty profound stuff, right? Pretty real stuff. L&R that. The law says you have to, and you can, but you get to pick and choose. Some people are so connected to the negative feelings that, that's what they choose to stay connected to. They love that feeling more than they are familiar with and the love that they could have for an abundant, progressive, impactful, purpose-living life in a progressive way. They're too addicted to the feelings of negativity and you could get addicted to them. You could wire yourself so that but you could unwire them as well. It's, neuroplasticity is a real thing. It is necessary then to cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing. That doesn't happen. That you're not born out of the womb to do that. It's something you've got to choose to do. He's saying it right here. It's necessary, it's essential that you cultivate this habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you and give thanks continuously. So you don't have to have these types of customers right now. That's a fantasy. You're creating the gratitude for something that hasn't yet happened. That's what a creator does, right? That's what a creator does. They create something that from nothing. It's not there yet. And then when you try to explain this to somebody or you share your affirmations with them, they'd be like, what? You're crazy. You're a mechanic. You're always going to be a mechanic, They wouldn't get it. But a creator creates something from nothing. Duh. Hello, McFly. It has to not be there if you want to create it. If it was already there, you couldn't create it. What do creators do? They create something from nothing. Right? It's like, wow, I could have had a V8. I wish somebody would have told me this when I was 13. Do not waste, and because all things have contributed to your advancement, you should include all things in your gratitude. I'm so grateful for the past. I don't sit there and get distracted by thinking about how grateful I should be and go into this long, drawn-out exhortation of the bad things that happened to me in my life and how I'm grateful for them. But I can get a very quick, instant picture and just be like, I'm so grateful because of where I am today. Those things helped lead me to where I am today. I had to taste enough of that, opposition in order to get to where I am today. I am grateful for all the things that have happened in my life. I wish I could have figured it out sooner. Why not? I could say I wish I could have figured it out sooner, but then I don't get into victimization and then sorrow and get into dissatisfaction around that. It is what it is, but I'm grateful for where I am today. And some of the things that I have in my life today wouldn't be here that I do want in my life had not all those things happened. Do not waste time thinking or talking about the shortcomings or wrong actions of plutocrats and trust magnets. That we could apply to politics right now. Republican, Democrats, right? Authority. Don't waste time thinking of all that stuff. Create your own environment. That's what I was talking about earlier. Your environment could be dramatically different than other people's environments because they're letting their environment dictate to them how to feel. Then they get on a hamster wheel about that. Their organization of the world has major opportunity. All you get really comes to you because of them. So in this case, he's talking about back in the, Carnegie's and the steel factories and how the wealthy were getting wealthier while the oppressed were being oppressed. But they were only being oppressed because that's the mindset they had. But because of the way transactions have been made and the economy started to change around that and started to provide individual opportunity in businesses and transactions. So that's what he's talking about right here. God was taking the world right where he wants it to go. And he used those people to the level that they were willing to be used. Do not rage against corporate politicians. And I do believe that you have a devil angel on one side, a devil and an angel on the other side. Absolutely. There are influences out there that are whispering in your ear. And then there are devil and angels in the form of people that are in your life, real people. But there is this spiritual side of devils and angels. And so there are those influences. And then there's your paradigm. And I'd say a lot of times people, point the blame at the devil and those influences when it really was their paradigm. But all of those are there. They're all a factor. Do not rage against corrupt politicians. If it were not for politicians, we should fall into anarchy and your opportunity would be greatly lessened. So people who are talking about anarchy and politicians and corruptness and look at it in a negative way rather than looking for the answers and progress and talking and speaking about the progress, guess where you'll go? You will end up going to those things. And now we see that, hopefully you're not paying attention to that stuff in a way that you're making agreements with it and you have fear of it. Fear is a feeling, and that thing will grow. The way we counter that is by thinking about the great. He says, always think about things as becoming. I don't know if we already read that or if he's going to be talking about that. God has worked a long time and very patiently to bring us up to where we are in industry and government. And he is going right on with his work. There is not the least doubt that he will do away with plutocrats, trust magnates, captains of industry, and politicians as soon as they can be spared. But in the meantime, behold, they are all very good. Remember that they are all helping to arrange the lines of transmission along which your riches will come to you. And be grateful to them all. This will bring you into harmonious relations with the good in everything, and the good in everything will move towards you. That is such a profound, man, if we could set up a weekend seminar and get everybody on the planet to attend that seminar around this and what that means and the practical application of that, we'd turn the world around immediately if everybody made agreements with it. But they're not going to. But those that are digging the pit will fall on their own swords. How? Because that's how the law works. Karma, right? It's not karma in the sense that it's cause and effect. And the pit that you dig for others is the pit that you're digging for yourself. It has to be. It could be no other way. So just give it time. All right. So let's just see where we're getting to. Oh, wow. That's the end of the chapter. Thinking in a certain way. So that'll be a good chapter to start on next week. Okay, so we're at 9:03. Got a 10, 15 minutes. Open this up for discussion. Guys, are you guys perceiving, are you getting some of this and how it's really an action-oriented thing here? You don't just read the book and make agreements with it and then keep doing what you're doing like you've always been doing it. If you get it, you're extracting these to change. We want a behavior change, and thinking is the greatest behavior. Thinking is the greatest behavior. So what we're looking at is a different way of thinking, piecing things together, a perception, and changing that perception and the actions that go along with that thinking process. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things. So I'm no longer perceiving things here like I used to here. This is all in the mental realm. This personal development, this has nothing to do with the business world and the physical world of transactions and conversations with people. It's up here. My behavior and the way I look at the world has changed. So what has to change with that? The way I think, the way I piece things together, the way I don't rationalize anything anymore. Well, I can rationalize things, and I don't know if I could use that in a positive term, if rationalization can. Consequences, though. Consequences go both ways, positive and negative. So I'm piecing things together in how they're taking place in my mind, the way I'm responding instead of reacting down here. That's probably the clearest way of saying that. The behavior change that has taken place is I'm no longer reacting ignorantly. I'm responding intelligently. I'm in control of the images and the feelings now in a very specific and scientific way. So I'm responding intelligently with the images that I hold during certain circumstances and conversations that come up during the day. Okay, I'm responding. And that takes time. That takes thought. It takes evaluation based on the education that I've been given and that I've, that educated process. It takes time. This doesn't take any effort at all to react. React is just letting your emotions fly and the wind's taking control of the cells, and you lose the direction you're going in when you react. Those same winds can blow on me. And in the beginning, those same winds are going to blow on you, the same circumstances. Just because you learn the principles and you start implementing the template and you're doing your vision work doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden going to have the greatest customers and people that are going to start signing up, and being those great customers. It's going to be mixed with both. The longer you maintain and respond with the right attitude and images, the more success you'll be having, and the less. What happens is there's less communication with people who are obstacles. They still do show up, but less of them show up, as long as you're keeping your mind at home. Okay, that's a powerful point in this. Right, anybody want to add anything coming up for anybody?
Dave?
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank you because I couldn't keep going on this at all without this training, with all of your training. So just thank you so much.
You're welcome. You had hit too many blind spots, right? That you wouldn't even know how to get, around or over or through. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're welcome. And thank you. And for those of you that are really wanting to self-actualize and be that 5th level leader that John Maxwell is talking about, you have to reach the success yourself. There's so many people that are telling people what to do in the personal development world, but their life is not a success of freedom and abundance. They get it. They're missing some pieces, and maybe they're not willing to do the work because they haven't found the right why. Maybe they have the pieces, they just haven't done the work. Once you've reached the success, there's a mentoring that you'll get into automatically through climbing that success and that identity, climbing that stair step of identity. You will become a mentor to other people, and then maintaining that mentorship and not, bouncing to something else and getting distracted is where that 4th level and 5th level leadership comes in, where you're impacting people's lives because of what it will do for them. But the only way you could do that is by creating, on the highest level, is creating a life of freedom and passive residual income for yourself. That's the only way you could maintain that, being in a position to be able to do that. And so many people want to do that before they've done the work themselves and created the success in their life. They want to become the person on the stage. That's ego. Be careful of that. That's pride. And I really feel like in this case, I'm speaking to the choir here, people that do want it, people that want to make a difference in other people's lives. But remember, don't want to make a difference in people's lives so much that you didn't make the difference in your own life first. For people who do that intentionally and knowingly, that's called a hypocrite. And I haven't heard Jesus get more mad and upset at somebody than he does with a hypocrite. Okay.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
You talked about angels and devils on your shoulder, and when you think about it, that's really the creative mind versus the competitive mind.
Yep. That's a profound statement. The moment you get into the competitive mind, you fall out of the creative mind.
Right. I've got to be up on stage when I haven't really earned the right to be on stage. Right. But to be someone, I have to be on stage. Right. And so what you're really telling your subconscious mind is, I'm not somebody already. Right. And I mean, that's the competitive mind trap.
And you'll see people out there that are great articulators. I forget what they call them, but, and maybe they do have other people's interest, but they're one person on the stage and they're effective up there and they do move people's lives forward because they're teaching some true principles. But off the stage, they're a totally different person. I've heard, the different stories that are out there about people and how backstage it's like, whoa, and I do not, and that's where it comes into having God as your accountability. You can't fool God. You can't be two people to God. There's no fooling God. So that's a very strong foundation and platform to build off of. Doing things for the right reason.
Dave?
Good job today. I like it when you go through Wallace Wattles paragraph by paragraph, you know, because that's really the process that you undertook, was to unpack Wallace Wattles paragraph by paragraph and think deeply about it, and then take that and use it as inspiration for writing out your legal pads, and really framing everything, and then revisiting it over and over again, just like you were training a dog. You know, training your subconscious mind just like it was a puppy that was basically wanting to please you, but needed direction, right? And you know, I really like it when we do that, when we just go through Wallace Wattles paragraph by paragraph, because there's so much there on every single page. It's very concise, it's very precise on exactly what we're supposed to be doing, but it's easy to miss it.
Yeah, I like watching people taking notes and who are shaking their head, because they're in tune, they're getting it, they're internalizing it. When I see people shaking their heads and they just have that look in their eye, you can tell they're really focused and they're getting it. Where other people could be listening to this and it's just kind of like ricocheting off, like a rock skimming across the top of the water. It's not getting in and sinking in. And, you know, even in this, the thing that you're saying about that, and the reason I said that is because this gives us a little more opportunity for that rock to sink into the water when we go through it like this. And, you know, and for, you know, the person that I can't remember who it was that just said that shared appreciation, you know, they're getting it, it's sinking in, it's getting into the depths. And I love that, you know, and people could get on here and it not sink in, you know, and I know that, but I'm not going to judge that. I love the process anyways. And I know that it is sinking in with people, even if it was just one person, even if it wasn't, I still get joy out of doing it. If it sank in on nobody, I still get joy out of sharing this. And who's really learning the most? The teacher always learns the most. You know, I've ingrained this stuff so much, but even as I go through it, a lot of it's a reminder to me, but it reminds me, and it allows me to take it again like it's fresh and say, oh yeah, I need to do better on that. But every once in a while there's like, oh, that just went deeper. That rock just sank deeper for me. But the biggest satisfaction is watching somebody apply it and their material world collapsing around it.
So I have a question.
Yeah, and then we'll go to Glenn. I know, Glenn, you have your hand raised, so let's go ahead, and then we'll go to Glenn.
Okay, I'm trying to get a handle on a hit list of books to read. And I know that you've recommended several, and I'm trying to find a logical path.
Wallace Wattles right now, Wallace Wattles. I stuck with Wallace Wattles for a little bit of time and then for the rest of my life, but you don't want to have to hurry to other books. Right. What I can do as a teacher is fill in the nooks and crannies with more, like Wallace Wattles teaches it in a way that I've never heard it before. Maybe I read something that talks about what Wallace Wattles talking about. He just articulates it better, right? And I got it. So what I can do as a teacher is I can take some of the stuff and try to make it even better than what Wallace Wattles did, you know, and then it's a process. And you could read this one book and create your dream life if you extract from this book. But sometimes you'll pick up another book or another author, and every once in a while it's going to give you something that they articulated as where it fit better with what Wallace Wattles was saying, or it finished it off, or, you know, took it deeper. But right now I would say Wallace Wattles.
Okay.
You know, and anything from Bob Proctor on YouTube, anything from Bob Proctor would be a continued education on this, and it will be redundant, but he'll say it in ways that are going to have pictures. He shows the little stick figure, and, you know, anything on YouTube with Bob Proctor would be reconfirming evidences of Wallace Wattles.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And I saw somebody ask what book. It was The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. Laurel replied to that. You know, on a leadership level, you do need to learn those skills, and you need to get an image of what a good leader looks like. how could you write that type of leader into your identity unless you were exposed to what that leader consists of? What are the character and attributes of a fourth? Third level leader is really, that's platinum. Third level leader would take you to platinum. So that would give you some more words to fill in on your template, the more you understand about level 1, 2, 3, and then eventually 4 and 5 level leaders. Okay, Glenn.
Yes, sir. We may not have time this week, but I would love to have you expand on what you just said about don't try to get on stage before you are ready or before you've had your own successes. That resonates with me totally, and it's exactly, from my perspective, the opposite of what we keep being pushed to do with regards to isogenics. We're always told, don't wait till you have your own product successes to tell the story. Don't wait till you're successful in business before you're out there sharing the business. And you end up with this whole fake it till you make it thing. The opposite of what you're talking about. So I'd love to hear you expand on that.
Yeah, no, those are two different things. So when I say stage, I'm talking about like the celebration stage, the Isogenics University stage, where you're training people on that, from that stage, right? And getting the recognition and everything that comes with being under the spotlight. When it comes to, you know, the other things you talked about, sharing the products before you get your story, if you understand the science, you could share the science because of your belief in the science and the word of the science. And why wait? And other people are going to have other different results than you do because they have different problems than you do. So two different things when it comes to all of the things you mentioned. We've been told to share the products, share other people's stories. That's all in alignment. That's going to help you be a better, more successful, you know, difference maker in the world, impact in people's lives. I'm talking about being literally under the spotlight. A lot of people vie for that position way before they deserve it. Getting to be asked to speak on the stage and under the spotlight is a result. It's a result. When they asked me to speak at Celebration or train at it, I was like, me? Are you serious? Like, you want me to? You know? And it caught me off guard because, you know, I saw myself as a leader and I made the template for that and the identity of that, but not as a leader speaking from the stage. To me, I could care less whether or not I speak from the stage. But if you're having success, they want you to share with other people why you're having success. So it's a result. And people do vie for that stage, and they'll vie for it like it's life or death. They'll claw for it. And that's just not the right way.
Well, Dave,
Thank you.
you know, when you talk to a new person, when you tell your story, you're presenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how many people do you know? You ask them, okay, what's your isogenic story? And they fumble. They don't have it nailed down. It's not part of their, it's not wired into their, you know, they don't start automatically. I mean, that's where presentation starts, not on the stage at Celebration. It starts with, you know, you're standing in the line at the post office and somebody says, oh, you're looking good. What are you doing? You know,
Mm-hmm.
working on that story, working on that presentation, you know, one-on-one, you know, because that's an act of love. You could change that person's life in the post office just by having your story, your own personal story nailed down.
And other people's
to
stories.
Where you've done it.
You
What's
guys,
that?
I went to Weight Loss Hall of Fame. There's over 200 stories there now, weightlosshalloffame.net. And I printed those stories and they were part of my little flip chart that I had. Because I know that other people were looking for results that weren't the same as mine. And I knew enough about the results that the products could produce. And through going through and reading every one of those stories, at that time, there was about 100 stories. And they were wide and varied. And I could read each one of those stories. And I did. I took the time to read each one of those stories. And I'm like, oh, a lot of people have that problem. Boom, printed it out and put it into the folder. And then shared that with that person who needed that story. I would totally depended on other people's stories. If you look at my presentation, I'm telling other people's stories to hopefully connect with other people. Okay, we're at the time. So, you you know, and that's the practical application of just being a salesperson, you know, and knowing your craft and knowing it in a way that you can convince other people to do the right thing. That's the working part of it. That's down on, so if I go back to this graph, that's this part down here, learning the business school skills. Learning how to articulate, how to put together a presentation. You know, I really wanted to be somebody who could articulate when I was, I took a public speaking class because I wanted to be able to articulate my thoughts and things that I felt would be important to other people effectively. And I had a passion for that. And so that's a skill. You've got to learn the skills of the trade. You got to learn your craft. And that's what Will Smith says. He says, I'll beat you at anything, you know, when it comes to my craft, because he says, I'll die for it. You got to know your craft. So that would be like, you know, when I was a mechanic, they sent us to Colorado to be trained at the Honda Training Center on how to fix cars, how to diagnose electrical problems, you know, how to tune it, how to adjust the valves. They sent us to learn our craft. There's a craft and skill set that comes with your Isogenics business. And if you're not entrepreneurial, if you haven't ever had an ounce of thoughts around entrepreneurialism and you've always been an employee being told what to do, you know, I heard, and I'm not talking down, but I heard at a specific store, they asked you multiple questions. And one of the questions was, if there was some water that was spilt on the ground, would you A, go get the mop and clean it up, B, leave it, C, call the manager? Well, any thinking person would go get the mop and start cleaning it up. In this particular case, that was wrong. You wouldn't get hired if that was the question, the way you answered the question. They didn't want you to be able to think for yourself. They wanted you to go to the manager and the manager tell you what to do. No, this is real. This is a true story. All right. So those people aren't going to have an ounce of entrepreneurial blood. So to say that you got to learn a skill set and a craft behind being an entrepreneur. But in this industry, in this culture, especially in this environment in Isogenics, their best chances of succeeding are right here, as long as they don't give up and get frustrated. Their best chances of getting the skill set is right here, you know, with Isogenics, in this culture, in this community. Isn't that crazy though? I mean, look at the way that the schools are, they're taking competition out of schools, working for excellence, standing out, being an individual, and they don't want you to think for yourself. That's the devil angel that people are listening to on this side. But I'm not concerned about them because I know God's in control and he's taking the world right where he wants it to go. And so, you know, stay focused on where you want to and what you want to see grow and what your passion is and what you want to stand for. Because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So, all right, good topics today. Awesome. Thanks for showing up, you guys, and blessing my life today. Have a great day. We'll see you on the Zoom tonight. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Dave.